On the ninth day of Christmas, namely 90s, gave to me 9 mutants shopping, 8 gifts a burning, 7 friends a praying, 6 keys a playing, 5 fourth wall breaks, 4 jinx a rapping, 3 calls to butter, 2 former husbands, and Santa holding a store hostage.
That doesn't rhyme.
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there's Brandon.
That's me.
You can find us online at namely90s.com or on Twitter and Instagram at namely90s with the 90s. You can also find the show on YouTube at youtube.com/@namely90s. And if you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/namely90s and sign up for one of those support levels. Welcome to day 9 of our 12 Days of Christmas specials, third annual.
Don't you mean 12 Days of Xmas specials?
12, yes. That's actually been multiple times in this this run with Futurama, but
that's true.
Yeah, so excited to welcome a new guest to us in this episode.
Yes. Are you going to actually introduce the guest this time?
No, God, no. I always make Brandon, whoever you are, I make Brandon do it. He hates it.
Well, it's just
it ruins the flow.
You do everything and then leave it to me.
I feel like you booked him, so you should get the honor of, okay, well, whatever.
That's fair. Well, today we are joined by Tej from That Cartoon Podcast.
Hi.
How's it going?
Welcome.
It's going.
Thanks for joining us. Your co-host Kyle. Hopefully he's all right. We were expecting him. He's
MIA. Gone dark. Yeah, we don't know.
That's concerning. But if he pops in during the episode, he pops in, and we'll introduce him. And
we are, of course, extending our thoughts and prayers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rip to the max.
Maybe. I'm
just going to leave that in there, and I will cut it out. I clearly haven't cut it out because you're hearing this on the episode that you're listening to. But yes, hopefully everything's all right over in Kyle's world right now. But Tej, why don't you... I'm going to steal the blurb that you guys have on your website. That Cartoon Podcast. You're Tej and Kyle, 2 good friends that love animated films and love to shine a light on these great underappreciated films. But you do a lot of television now that you're in season 2. But you guys watch and talk about the best and sometimes not the best that animation has to offer. So can you tell us a little bit more about That Cartoon Podcast now that I've stolen your outdated blurb?
Yeah, just repeat the blurb verbatim.
Yeah,
that's about it. It's just me and Kyle just watching random shit, and we just we talk about it on camera and over the phone, and it's just it's just a good time. I have time, he had time, and we love these movies and sometimes these shows, and I feel like there's a lot of things that people just don't. They watched them back like 20 years ago when they were kids, and they never thought about them again. So now we're deciding to think about them again and realizing that there's probably a reason we turned out so poorly.
Yeah, well, I feel like there should be a genre of podcast called just random shit. Because, yes, we kind of focus ours on the 90s, but really that's
and
all
we claim we're humor, but I can't get Andrew to take an improv class.
In good conscience, I couldn't, it feels wrong to put our podcast in the comedy section, but we are doing it.
Yes.
Or wherever.
Well, we like to have a laugh. And speaking of season 2s, we're starting our season 2 in January. So you guys had a faster path to it, and your season 2 is themed, which I really like. It's 90s kids specials. You've covered, let's see, Angry Beavers, Samurai Jack, which is technically 2001, but you address it head on in the beginning. Wild Thornberries, Ed, Edd and Eddy, and I assume you're going to be covering a bunch more before the season ends. What made you choose that focus for a second season?
Honestly, the reason we chose that focus is because we didn't have a focus season 1, and we decided, you know what, we should probably be adults about this and kind of pigeonhole ourselves, because we were really just throwing things at the wall about like, oh, let's watch this random movie from 1940. Now let's watch this unnecessary anime from 2016. And we're like, maybe let's have a pattern for a little while.
That's
Might
fair.
be good.
It tightens your focus, and but since it allows you to do other things in the future if you want. We spent the last 2.5 years just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks. So it's fun to see how podcasts evolve like that, and it's nice to see like there are cartoons that you picked for the season so far already that are not as talked about as much, I feel like, especially in like our 90s kid space. Like I've brought up Angry Beavers before. I've mentioned when Wild Thornberries was premiered, but we didn't really focus on them. I forgot that Lacey Chabert was the voice of Eliza on the Wild Thornberries, like stuff like that. And it's nice to just go back and focus on like stuff that I loved as a kid, because I know I consumed all of those cartoons and probably have seen most, if not all, of those episodes. So it's like the stuff you guys talk about, hopefully we get the same effect with our listeners, but like it just unlocks like, oh wow, I completely forgot about that part of that show.
Right.
And I like where I can just sit down and listen to like a 40-minute episode on Hey Arnold and be like, oh yeah, that happened.
We just did our Hey Arnold episode, and the entire time I was watching the episodes, I was like, man, I don't remember anything about this show. I remember it existed. I remember the big hitters. Everything else, I don't know how, it just got wiped from my memory, and I watched Hey Arnold a lot as a kid.
Right? And like, I can remember only 2 episodes off the top of my head. The Halloween episode where they do the Orson Welles thing, and the opera one where he falls asleep at the opera, and they do Carmen and Pagliacci, and I don't remember what the first one was. But yeah, it's but I could not tell you, other than Arnold, I want to say Gerald, his best friend, and Helga, I could not tell you anyone's names. And I've spent years watching that as a kid. But yeah.
Gerald.
Was it Gerald?
I don't know. It sounds vaguely right. But
Arnold, Gerald, Helga, and Phoebe.
Phoebe. That's the one I forget. She was the girl with the kind of the bowl cut black hair. No. Yes. Red shirt.
No, you're thinking of Ruth.
I don't know enough about the show.
Or no, Rhonda.
Ruth.
I think you're thinking of Rhonda, the rich girl.
All of the things.
These are not things I remember. These are just memories that for some reason exist in my mind, and I wish they weren't there because I'm wasting time.
I mean, you're not wasting time. We're glad to have you on.
Cutting out a lot for you guys?
No,
just a little bit. You are on my end.
It's not problematic though. It sounds okay. To me,
is he cutting out at all on your end, Andrew?
Not really, no.
Can you hit record on your end?
Sure.
If I give you permission.
It says, please give me permission.
And do you have local recording set up?
Good question.
Sorry, we're going to take a quick pause.
Okay.
I only have 574 gigabytes remaining. Do you want a separate audio file of each participant?
Yes, that's what I was about to ask you to do. Did you say you only have 500 gigs left?
Yeah, that's a joke.
Let's see if I can try connecting to a different internet.
No, I think we're good. I'm recording now.
Just to make sure.
He just cut out for me.
I'm still recording regardless, so you
still I can hear you.
Okay, nice.
I can hear you. Okay.
Good deal.
Oh, you're recording on your end?
Yeah, I'm recording.
No, he said
he is?
Tej, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. I can hear you guys. Yeah.
Did you say you were recording on your end?
Yeah, I'm recording all of my audio separately as well, just in case.
Oh, can you just give me a quick clap?
Yeah.
I think you have noise suppression on.
It's noise canceling, yeah.
Yeah. But don't worry about it. I can match the.
It hates you so much, Brandon.
Yeah. Anyway, if you could send me that after we're done.
Oh, of course.
It might make for better audio. And I am marking the time. Okay. Good to go. What we were discussing. So where did you get the idea for that cartoon podcast?
I won't take any of the credit. This is really all Kyle one day texted me. And he said, "Hey, do you want to do a podcast about cartoons?" And I'm a down bitch, so I'll always say yes to things. So he's like, "Yeah, we'll work around your schedule, all this, blah, 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 blah." And he was like trying to sell me on it. And I'd already said yes at that point. So that's about it. Kyle wanted to do it and I had time.
And how did you guys know each other before that? Right?
We met in undergrad. Probably like 8 or 9 years ago now. I don't even know. We were just in the same dorm together, and I don't know if either of you have spoken to Kyle at length. He has a very loud and noticeable laugh. So one day, and this is a story that I think he hates. One day we were in the same bathroom. He was taking a shower, I think, and I was just washing my hands, and something happened, and he starts giggling. And I didn't know anyone else was in the bathroom, so I freaked out, and I also started laughing, and now we're friends.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Great story. I love that.
And it's a natural evolution of that is having a podcast, cross-country podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. How about, let's see, what is your release schedule like?
We release every other week. Although I believe we are going to be changing it to every week starting soon. I'm trying to get Kyle to, he's being very accommodating to me, and I don't need him to be. So I'm trying to force him to bully me into working more.
That's fair. That's a working style. And I heard your January schedule has four episodes in it.
Yes.
Friday release. That'll be cool to see you guys ramp up production. Currently, let's see, this is the our 9th episode, so it's the 29th, which means this is on is this on a Friday? It's on a Friday. It's on a Thursday.
Thursday.
So you could,
which is like the day before Friday.
Yes. So possibly depending on how the schedule is, either there's an episode tomorrow or there's an episode a week ago. Go listen to that.
Yeah.
Although, make sure you stay here while you're listening to us talk about the X-Men episode, Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas, Season 4, Episode 17 of the X-Men animated series from the 90s, just titled X-Men. So that's so easy to be able to Google. But yeah, let's move forward since we don't have Kyle here to counter your facts about him, that he But we get to say that Kyle was the one that suggested this episode because the Pokemon episode was taken. And this year we were a little bit more accommodating with our guests, and if they had a suggestion, we would take it. We may, after this episode, may stop doing that next year. So thank you, Kyle. But yeah, let's start with, first, I guess, since you're a new guest this year, do you have any like 90s holiday memories that you feel like sharing, or should we go straight into like memories of the X-Men?
You mean in general, or just about like
in general? In general, like, we're a 90s podcast.
I spent most of my time, like any of us 90s kids, just like sitting around watching TV, waiting for my like parents to either come home or get ready for, the rest of the day. Just watching all the Christmas specials that were constantly on, and I'm now learning that they had varying levels of worth.
Oh yeah. They're definitely, some episodes are better than others. But I guess you could say that of the 1994 X-Men cartoon too.
Yeah.
Which is also known as X-Men the Animated Series. It debuted in 1992, apparently. Why did I put 94? I think. On Fox Kids. It ran for 5 seasons. There's going to be a revival next year, possibly. It was announced it's on Disney Plus as X-Men 97. So yeah. Who remembers this? Who wants to go first? Relationship.
I mean, I will say I wasn't even aware that this existed at all, and that's pretty much my level of involvement. I've never seen this before.
So you do you have any X-Men knowledge prior to this? Like, did you watch the Fox films? Did you?
No, I'm not a
nerd.
That wasn't what I was gonna say, but
I know you're not a comic book guy.
Yeah, let's put it that way.
That's fair. What about you, Tej?
So I am a comic book guy. I know a decent about the X-Men, but I never really watched this show. I knew it existed, and I actively avoided it for some reason, and that turned out to be a good decision on my part. This is probably the second or third episode I've ever seen.
And how does it live up to quality wise, do you think, compared to the comics? Because they adapted like the 90s, a lot of the late 80s and early 90s runs into this series, kind of like the Spider-Man series did.
I think you can really tell that this is on Fox Kids back in like 1992. It shows, and like, when you would be watching like an after school special and you'd get to like the moral of the story and then like the piano music starts playing. I felt like I was waiting for that to happen like 8 times during this show.
Oh, I feel like that some of that was just, it's the Christmas special episode. But yeah, I can see where you're going with that. For me, I watched this series a little bit when it was on the air. I remember preferring Spider-Man. If Spider-Man was on, I would watch that. Or I would, if X-Men was on, doesn't, I could watch it. But if Spider-Man usually came on like either before or after that, because they had like a crossover episode at one point. I definitely watch Spider-Man, and it's the early 90s Marvel cartoons were all in a shared universe. So it's saying something that I prefer the Spider-Man show to the X-Men show. And the thing I did love about this show was the theme song was a banger. The orchestral. It
was so long.
Oh, that's
my gosh,
true.
The 90s, man.
It needed to be longer.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
I would go for just 10 minutes of and then and you got,
it was catchy, but it lasted a long time.
You got your title card thing where they would be like doing something and then look at the screen. To
be honest with you, I was pouring cream in my coffee, so I didn't actually see it that closely.
How long were you pouring cream in your coffee?
I
That's
mean,
a lot of cream.
I like get it out. I had to take the little. It was like the foil seal was still on it. I do that, and I spilled it. It's just like
Also, it occurs to me I'm wearing a DC property shirt for a Marvel property episode.
As God intended.
Yes. But yeah, they adapted a lot of storylines from the comics. It deals with a lot of social issues, including divorce, the Holocaust, AIDS, feeling of loneliness, depression. There's a lot, like they tackled a lot of stuff. There's a reason why it's a beloved series for people out there. Again, I preferred the Spider-Man series, but I was a kid. I plan on going back and watching the whole thing before X-Men 97 comes out. I tried starting, and it was, the first episode, the pilot for this series is kind of rough. And Changeling dies in it, which is fantastic, but then unfortunately they bring him back at some point. But yeah, out of all the 90s Marvel shows, this was probably like second best to me. Some people think it's better than Spider-Man. It's not. It's not
at all.
It can't be. But it's definitely second place because, well, the other ones were god awful.
The other ones aren't worth mentioning. Like, they're that bad.
Yeah,
and they made a lot of them.
Fantastic Four, Iron Man, and She-Hulk, I know for sure. And then there's some like Avengers 1, 2. Plus, well, X-Men Evolution, which I always was like, oh, it's a sequel series. It's not. But that was early 2000s. But yeah, they do like some of the important stuff. Like they do the Sentinels and Apocalypse, and Jean Grey gets the Phoenix Force, and she doesn't kill everyone, unfortunately, but they do go through the Phoenix. I think it's the best screen adaptation of the Phoenix storyline. Don't at me on that. And yeah. I think that's your primer for X-Men. Sorry, Teach.
I think that's an easy bar to pass because it's a very poorly adapted like storyline.
They've done it twice already, though. Yeah. They did it in the same franchise. They've done it twice.
Yeah. And it sucked both times. It basically killed the franchise both times. That's the wild part.
That's true. Wow. And yeah, wow. I didn't think of it that way. Was it Famke Jensen? Andrew knows who that is.
Oh yeah, you played. What's it? Oh gosh,
she was Jean Grey. I thought in the first 3 movies.
No, I didn't know that.
Was she Xena Onatov in?
Yes,
GoldenEye?
in GoldenEye. Yeah, that's right.
I believe that's the same person. Yeah, so a couple more things I had written down. The Professor X, like this version of Professor X, it was adapted on screen for the recent Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It wasn't exactly a 1-to-1.
Does he have a hover wheelchair?
He has the hover wheelchair. Yes, he has the golden hover wheelchair, but it's Patrick Stewart who played Professor X in the X-Men movies. But he had more of this cartoon version powers.
Did I hear a rumor that Giancarlo Esposito is going to be playing Professor Xavier?
Yeah, I think you sent me that rumor.
That's cool.
I would be interested in that. It's going to be hard letting go of Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, no, I get that. He's also 1 billion years old. Like he's
too old to restart a franchise.
True. Yeah, especially one that's probably going to keep going for another decade.
Unfortunately, but
I think the MCU is worth it. The DCU, oh man, there's some shakeups right now.
That's right. We call it the Dick U now.
Yes, that's the Magic School Bus universe.
Okay.
DIC. Dick. Yeah. Finally. One other thing, so in Ms. Marvel, the Disney Plus series, they confirmed that Kamala Khan is a mutant, and they play the X-Men title Sting as they say that. Originally Kamal Khan was an Inhuman in the comics. I read like that first run of Ms. Marvel and really liked it. And it made so much sense when they're like, yeah, so because Fox owned the mutants rights for on screen, we made Kamal Khan Inhuman instead of a mutant because we didn't want to lose her as an IP. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense. But now that the mutant rights are back under the MCU, she can be the way she was intended to be instead of pigeon-toed? No, shoved into pigeonholed.
I did not know there was this much going on in the background. It's exhausting.
So much. Well, I just wanted to pad it out.
I'll be honest. I've been looking up smart switches for my home for like the last 10 minutes, just glazing over.
You said you had a box of them already, though.
No, I know, but I was looking for a thermometer or temperature monitor, but like this app doesn't have one.
The Nest thermostat by Amazon.
No, use promo code 90. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, namely 90s. Okay, finally, just so Andrew doesn't fall asleep. When I got back into comics in like the early 2010s, one of the Marvel things that I picked up was the all new X-Men, which had the like core 5 X-Men brought to the future from the past, and it was good. I read it for a couple years of that, and it was interesting. I liked going back to characters that I knew because I watched the 90s X-Men and they focused on these core characters that when I was a kid and picked up X-Men comics later on, I was like, I don't know who the fuck is in any of these issues. Where's Cyclops? Where's Jean Grey? Where's Wolverine? Like, Wolverine was the only person that actually showed up in an X-Men comic that I found as a kid. And it was just like, oh, I know that guy.
Well, they killed him off for a good bit in the comic run, and then they replaced him with one of his various children, depending on who was writing the story.
X-23?
Yeah, or Dracon or Daikon? I don't remember what that other guy's name is.
Daikon.
Japanese, yeah.
It's Japanese.
I know, that's why I think it's... I'm worried that might actually be his name, because I think he was also like vaguely Asian.
But
exactly.
But it's spelled die hyphen.
So like Brandon.
Con, yeah. I'm half Japanese.
Vaguely
Asian. Yeah. Shall we? Any other X-Men things you want to share before we get into the episode?
No, it's just a weird. I think it's like Marvel's answer to like, well, we want to include random X superpower. Just make him a mutant. Now we got a story to put him in.
That's true. Well, I mean, the mutant craze was big in the 80s, early 90s, and because they adapted storyline, or they made storylines that were that resonated with minorities and people that were subjugated, or they weren't the regular white standard people. Yeah. And there's LGBTQ allegories. There's like a lot of the mutant stories are like coming out stories, which are interesting for like when you find a new mutant and they're like, my parents aren't tolerating that I'm a mutant and I have to hide it from them. Like, so they resonate with that community. It's really X-Men manages to touch just about everyone, but in a safe way.
Every 5 issues or so, they have to like softly remind everyone, like, hey, by the way, Magneto's a Holocaust survivor. Maybe chill out on him slightly.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Still evil, but he's not a Nazi.
Right. He's the opposite, but also kind of swaps back and forth. Yeah. So we watched season 4, episode 17. Have yourself a Morlock Little Christmas.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. I had forgotten what the Morlocks were at this point. I thought Morlock was changeling, and was like, or like some sort of X-Men that I forgot about and hated, like Changeling. But yeah, the episode starts with Cyclops, Storm, and Jubilee trimming a tree, singing a Christmas carol that the one Deck the Halls. Mm-hmm. Wow, it took me literally 12 hours to figure out exactly what they were singing. Cyclops can't sing apparently. They invite Wolverine over to trim the tree, and he's all, "I'm the rogue outsider bub. I'm not gonna be happy for Christmas." And yeah,
I was so confused because like I know some of the characters, no idea what was going on, and I was like, why are they all being dicks to each other? That was the thing I couldn't figure out. I was like, I hate these people. It was weird.
Yeah. Speaking of being dicks, in the next scene, Gambit is trying to spice up Jean Grey's cooking, and Jean Grey is kind of forcing him out of the kitchen because she wants traditional gender roles or something. I couldn't
Who was
figure that one out. Gambit? That was Gambit, who speaks in the third person.
His voice felt offensive.
He's
to me.
Cajun. Yeah.
He looked white, and that seemed problematic.
They have white people in Louisiana.
Yeah.
No, I know, but it just sounded very. I mean, I was feeling I was going to hear more of like a Harry Connick Jr. voice.
He's the French side of.
Okay, but
yeah,
like the other thing, I just immediately couldn't not notice is like, and I might take some heat for this, but this is like the laziest trash garbage animation that I've ever seen.
It's not good.
Thank
it wasn't. You. Yeah, I'll defer.
At one point, they were talking. And their mouth moving was that you could see their teeth, but the mouth wasn't moving. Like that one scene that happened.
Do not talk with your teeth. Wait,
it was crazy.
Teeth. That's hard. Okay.
They were cutting corners back then. I think this was back when like Marvel was probably in the process of going bankrupt, or at least starting to. So I'm not surprised.
Had to sell off the rights. Yeah. Like I always talk about the Spider-Man cartoon in this episode, but like every time they would show him swinging through the city, it's the same thing, either just like flipped horizontally in one direction or the other to show movement.
Yeah.
I'm guessing though what they were getting at with them being mean to each other is it's like kind of like, you know, with your family, like, you know, you like each other, but you're also kind of like
hate each other.
Yeah, like give him a hard time, you know, that's kind of what it felt like too. But then later they were like really being dicks to each other.
Well, I mean, Jean Grey like uses her like psychic powers to throw him into a pot of like
the food she was cooking.
Yeah, exactly. But also, wasn't that supposed to be hot? And he's like, that was cold. Like,
She didn't want him to add cayenne pepper to anything. She's very particular about not having any seasoning in her Christmas dinner.
Also, did Beast give you some brainy gremlin vibes?
Oh yeah. From Gremlins too.
Yeah, I got that.
So he like whenever he's working, he's always like hanging from the ceiling like a bat for some reason. Even though I don't really think that
he's
works.
A bat.
He's not.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Also, doesn't he like have the same head shape or hair as Wolverine somehow?
Oh my god!
Yeah, I never noticed that. Now that I think about that,
it's like yeah.
It forms an M for mutant. Yeah. It's like Maine Coon cats of the M on the.
Well, he's also like furry, which somehow they have to correct that by giving him underwear, which makes him seem more naked than if they had just not drawn genitals, because they didn't have to. No one was going to be like, well, where's Beast's, swang?
This smooth area is really going to mess him up.
Yeah, no one was cared. It looks weird. It looks worse when he's wearing underwear.
Oh, geez. Yeah. So, yeah, we learned that it's Jubilee's first Christmas with them all the way in season 4. I thought Jubilee was in this since the first, like, she's in the first episode. I thought like like her parents. She's the one that runs away from her parents, and the X-Men like find her in the first episode, and all the way in season 4, it's her first Christmas with the X-Men.
She had to earn the right to have Christmas.
Oh yeah, they just like sent her off to the other wing in the school.
Yeah.
It's like, you can't have Christmas with us until now.
Yeah.
But yeah, Beast cranberry glaze that he's working on in a lab with I guess everything would be cleaner in a lab.
It appears he's distilling it, but I'm like,
what would you be distilling?
Do you need to distill it? I feel like then the sugars would stay in the original flask, and then you would just get like essentially the steam. I just doesn't make any sense.
You're right, because he does in the first scene. He's like talking about how sometimes it would be boozy, but I'm making this without alcohol, and it's like, why?
You're distilling it.
Yeah,
yeah. It's just moonshine.
Who throws alcohol into their cranberry sauce?
Honestly, that might be something to try.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah,
a little Grand Marnier or something. It's orange flavored.
Do like Cherry's Jubilee. Huh? Anyway, Jubilee wants Wolverine to go shopping on Christmas Eve because yet again, this is one of the tropes we've noticed this year is that every episode, Christmas episode, starts on Christmas Eve. No one's like decked the tree. No one's gone shopping.
They're all doing it Christmas Eve.
Yeah,
and then antics ensue.
Yes, so they go shopping. Jubilee, Wolverine, and Storm go shopping. Jubilee buys a bunch of presents, and like dicks, both Wolverine and Storm don't help her carry her packages. Like she's stacked in front of, and she can't see basically. Logan gets sprayed with cologne by an aggressive saleswoman in the mall.
I do want to say I have some problems with the gifts though.
Yes.
First of all, I think there were 6 gifts, which seemed like not enough.
Mm.
And then later she dropped one of them when they were like leaving in a rush.
Yep.
She was told to leave the gifts alone.
That is correct.
And I thought the one that they showed falling was going to somehow become relevant. It wasn't. So she didn't gifts for everybody. And then toward the end of the episode, which we'll get to, the gifts were different shapes
yes,
than they were when she was carrying them originally.
And half of them were food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As well as 2 gifts. One was a teddy bear. Another one was a toy plane. Who were those gifts for?
And also, like, if they're going to, they said, we don't have enough food. And she's like, I have it here. But in reality, it wasn't a Christmas feast. It was like one of those tins with the 3 kinds of popcorn in it. Like that's our Christmas dinner in the sewer.
There's no food that she could have bought as a present that would have been appropriate to serve for Christmas dinner.
Yeah, there's like a Norman Rockwell turkey in there. It's just like perfectly brown.
They were all just the Hillshire. They're all just the Hillshire Farms.
The summer sausage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holiday
Harry
log.
and David. It's like the jalapeno jam and the little breadstick things.
The sewer people are going to be living high tonight. So then I had forgotten that somehow they're in New York. Like they were ice skating at Rockefeller Center while having packages with Storm. I guess Storm is a mutant and a member of the X-Men, so she can protect the packages if someone tried to steal them. But you put the packages back in whatever you took to get there, right?
You would think.
Anyway, an ambulance comes careening off the side of the road onto the ice skating rink, filled with 2 Morlocks. Morlocks are a collective of mutants that feel like society has given up on them, and they live in the New York sewers. I believe they're an allegory for homeless people.
My question is, I feel like any sci-fi show, there's like some different group of people or race of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why is it a character trait that they always develop that they can't use contractions when they speak? Have you noticed that's a thing that's used in many, many different things. And it's like very odd. Like, why did Storm not ever use contractions in her speech? They ever explain that?
Well, she's
not a native.
English is not her.
She's not a native speaker, so that might be why.
She's from Africa. I wanted to say she's Kenyan.
Wow, they need to work. I mean, like, I don't want to be, but their shading is confusing.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, I know you can't get offensive with it, but I was like having trouble discerning what ethnicity they were trying to imply that the people were.
That's fair. In the comics, she marries T'Challa at one point. Black Panther.
And this is not a dig at non-English speakers. I'm just saying, like, any sci-fi thing, the other race of whatever or the other group of people, it's like that's always a trope they use where they have, it's not even broken English, they just won't use contractions. Even the smart ones. Whereas then the Morlocks were like implied to be dumb, and they were using a loss of,
I mean, we could bring it back to Patrick Stewart on Star Trek: The Next Generation. Data, the super smart android, could not use.
Well, it's a computer, even though computers. I mean,
his brother Data could, or his brother Lore could. Yeah.
I mean, Clippy knows how to do contractions, so.
And that's how they figured out Lore was posing as Data in an episode or two, possibly 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew contractions could be so interesting?
Right.
We do now.
So speaking of crashing things together, that worked.
Nice.
The crashed ambulance on the skating rink. The Morlocks, the 2 Morlocks that stole the ambulance, get out, and they're attacked by the X-Men. In a weirdly creepy move, Logan carries Jubilee on ice skates to the
I was confused because they made a point to show them, I thought, untying the ice skates.
I thought he wasn't like doing well balancing on them too, whereas Jubilee was the better skater.
And then all of a sudden, he's picking her up and skating her over. Like, what?
Which makes no sense because he's Canadian.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, he should be really good at this.
Half his life was on ice skates.
Yeah, he should have hockeyed or just like pulled out a hockey stick and shot things.
He just body checks Jubilee into the boards.
Muscle memory takes over, and he just.
And then somehow Storm is the leader of the Morlocks. I missed this development.
I also don't know.
Clearly, it was on a previous episode.
There was no explanation of previous episodes.
Yeah, I'd like to point out this episode started without any previously on the X-Men, whereas the next episode auto-played for me, and it was like previously on the X-Men for 2 minutes, and it's like Sentinels, Apocalypse, and like I was like, why? I mean, at least show Storm becoming the leader of the Morlocks. Like this is. They
definitely made this like at the end of the season, and then they were like, where is this the least stressful to put this in to fit it in for Christmas?
That's fair.
So.
Yeah. The Morlocks convince Storm that they need help because Leech is injured, who's like a teen, looks like a frog. They steal the medical equipment. Storm causes a blizzard because there's a bunch of police chasing them. So they get away and into the sewer drains that apparently are connected to Rockefeller Center's skating rink. So we get down into the sewer tunnels of New York. Jubilee complains about leaving her presents, but then she brings them with her anyway, except for the one that gets left behind. That, like, why bother showing that it's like one falls away if it's not like relevant to the plot?
Yeah, exactly. That was weird.
We learn that Leech is going to die. Storm bullies Wolverine into doing field medicine because he's ancient. He was a field medic in World War II.
Sure.
I think he was in.
Which all he does is he feels the pulse.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then puts his head on his chest and determines that the pulse is dropping, so therefore he can't be moved.
Yes. Well, if your vitals aren't stable, you're not supposed to be moved, right? That's what we learn in television.
If they're moving you to the place where your life will be saved, I would just take the risk.
That's fair.
Or, I mean, transportation doesn't seem to be a problem for these people.
But we learned
these people? What do you mean by that? No, just mutants.
They're superheroes. How is this such a mundane problem for them?
So that's true.
Yeah.
Especially the guy that could transform into anything.
Yeah. The thing that drove me nuts was like, so Wolverine's blood was possibly healing or whatever.
Oh yeah, magic.
And he was like, I'm not going to do it because there's a good chance it won't work. I'm like, but the negative to you is like someone pokes your arm a little bit. Like, why would you not be willing to try? You have a 5% success rate. And the only downside is you have to get poked with a needle. So like, put your bitch in, get in there and donate the blood. That was my thought.
The question is like, is this magic? So is this magic blood? Is this like the trope magic blood bullshit, like from Star Trek Into Darkness, where Khan's super soldier blood can heal the entire universe, so death no longer exists? Like,
also, I feel like in the 90s, like using blood from an unscreened donor and giving it to somebody else, especially, like, that's just not a good look. I feel
like Wolverine's blood would have been the cleanest blood, though, right?
Well, maybe, but he's donated a lot of it. I'm just saying,
because he has the auto healing. That like his mutant ability is auto healing, not just having.
But my question is, why did that guy have to turn into a table? They're like, we need a flat surface. And I'm like, the ground, which is under the table?
He needed to be higher, right? Because they were using
I guess. Like, put the guy on the ground. Like, they clearly have plenty of crates that they can put to. It was just funny, the guy to be a table.
Where was the blood going for that? Because in a transfusion, isn't some of the blood supposed to be cycled out?
No, typically you're just putting it into a bag that has an anticoagulant, and then you then administer it from that bag.
Gotcha.
This idea of like hooking one person up to another person, I don't think that they really do that.
That's fair.
But in a pinch, you know.
Yeah. The field, as a field medic, that he then has to administer his own. Yeah,
he is the field medic that goes around and just gives his own blood to everybody who's injured.
Yeah. So Storm and Wolverine argue for no reason. Ape turns himself into a bed for Wolverine to lie down on.
I did think it was funny that Wolverine, after donating the blood, was like, "Can I get like a cookie and an orange juice here?" That's really.
I'm wondering how they know everyone's name already. Like they must have. I know they had encountered the Morlocks before, but like Jubilee knew every like small orphan girl's name somehow. Yeah. And
like when I meet someone new at work, it takes me 3 weeks to learn their name. I don't know how this is happening.
But what if they were half frog?
True.
So much easier. That's easy to remember. Half frog person. Is that offensive if I call you frog person?
No, you'd never forget Jessica if she was half frog. Like,
true.
I mean, I'm sure.
Brandon's not impressed. He's like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So we get the Tiny Tim orphan girl.
There's always a Tiny Tim type in these holiday specials. Very common.
Which we'll hear about in tomorrow's episode. She shows Jubilee their sad Christmas, the Charlie Brown Christmas tree, the fact that they're getting gruel for dinner.
The thing I always struggle with is, how would you react if you went to the Tiny Tim like orphanage or whatever, and they insisted on you eating with them, and be like, I really can't. Like, this is not appropriate.
I'm not going to take from you guys. I'm sorry.
Like, no, I insist. And you're like, but still no. Like, you need.
It's not even that. It's just like, this is definitely going to be gross.
It was
that is slop. The most. That's very fair. Like, this is this tomato soup?
You made this in a sewer.
Is it blood?
I'm not going to eat this.
She's wearing a potato sack.
It'd be like they would insist, and you would feel bad, but at the same time, like, this looks gross, and I also don't want to take your food away. Plus, I've got that tin of popcorn.
Yeah. What is this meat? Like, where did you find this? Who is this?
Yeah. And how many pizza rats had to die for you to make it?
Yeah.
Couldn't you have just used the pizza, not the rat? So at this point, Beast shows up because they called their fellow X-Men, and Beast is like, Logan gets fed up with giving his blood and it's like, it's not going to work, and walks away. And then Beast shows up and does his Brainiac routine. And just as he's about to check Leech's vitals, suddenly Leech magically heals.
His eyes open, but they were not eyes.
No, they were
weird. Like lizard eyes. But the thing that was annoying me about Beast is he's got the stethoscope on Leech's chest, and he won't stop talking. Like, what can you not do when you're talking? Listen. Like, he would not stop talking while he had the stethoscope on his chest, and I was just like, this is getting a little ridiculous. But it is a kid's
What you don't
cartoon.
understand is Beast has enhanced healing, or not healing, advanced hearing. So obviously that's why it was happening, not because they didn't understand how stethoscopes work.
clearly he's not
that's
an
why the
active listener
stethoscope was around
because
his
he's
neck, not in
talking.
his ears. I'm sorry.
Yes, that's true.
Also, just so you know, Andrew, Beast is played by the actor that plays Frasier in the X-Men movies. So,
oh my god,
if that makes
Well,
it is.
the thing that I was like, so he was like the more advanced doctor type medical person, but really the only thing he did that was more advanced was instead of listening to the chest with his ear or feeling the pulse with his hand, he just used a stethoscope, which
he could have done with his actual ear better than just Logan.
Yeah, exactly. Like there was no difference in their actual medical training or ability. I just want to point that out.
Beast is an actual scientist. Wolverine was a field medic.
Also,
so
they did the same
why
thing.
did they bring Rogue?
Oh, she flew him there.
Beast can't fly the X-Wing or X-Jet, whatever it's called.
See, that's what I thought. I thought she was supposed to fly him in the X-Jet. I think she literally just flew him there.
Yeah.
He just flushes himself down the toilet.
Yeah.
Okay. That way he can make the sewers.
The X-Jet does fly faster than, yes.
I do want to point out they're in the sewer and there's clearly like ledges on either side they could be walking on and not be in the shit water. Like, why are they all walking through like ankle deep feces? I don't understand. Like sewers never have feces in them. Are they just implying they're storm drains?
I guess so, because Storm was walking through it.
Oh boy!
Wow, it's my day to get all the puns in. I love it. Andrew always gets to do that. And so yeah, I already asked. So Jubilee is like has a change of heart. Instead of being the annoying girl complaining about not getting her Christmas because it's her first Christmas since her. Apparently, it's been the first Christmas over the last 4 years since her family has abandoned her and she's joined the X family. So she wanted a good Christmas, and then she saw how other people had it and was like, oh, have all of my gifts.
Perspective. Oh my gosh. Do you remember when Storm goes on like this sort of self-righteous bit about how like, you know, you have to think about what's more important. And then she like the character literally glances at the non-existent camera and says like, I think we could all use a reminder of this, which isn't untrue, but I was just like, this is a little bit like they're just hitting us over the head with it a bit more than usual.
Jean Grey looked at the camera too, so they cut back to the X Mansion with her and Gambit arguing over the Christmas dinner, and then she says something directly to the camera too, and I was like, "What is going on here?" Oh, and Gambit says, "Gambit does not make TV dinners."
Yeah,
Sherry.
Yeah, but he made some like disgusting. It wasn't. They were implying that what he made was super gross, right?
No, I thought they were just going to save it as leftovers for tomorrow.
Was I wrong though? I thought they were trying to make it like implied that the food he made was like sort of gross.
I don't know.
I think Jean was just being a bitch because she wanted to make it. That's
fair.
It could have been amazing. She wouldn't have said it was.
And yeah, so yeah, she just wanted it her way.
I think he said something about like oyster casserole, and I think that is a thing, but it sounded disgusting. Do you guys, you know, the people who make dressing or stuffing, apparently a Creole thing to do is, or like a Southeast U.S. thing to do is add oysters to the stuffing or dressing.
Canned oysters.
That sounds disgusting.
Yeah, I mean.
But apparently that started because they were trying to add more protein to the meal if they didn't have enough like turkey or whatever.
I feel like you couldn't, I mean, I don't know if I could tell that they were in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess if it was cooked.
Yeah.
I mean, they would still be chewy.
Ugh.
And what's going to have chew in
bread,
stuffing, dressing?
Bread and onions.
I guess
Craisins.
Raisins and stuffing?
Craisins.
Oh, okay, craisins. Okay, there we go. Never mind.
I don't do that. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not a psychopath, but that is something. People put some wacky ass shit in their dressing.
Yeah, that's true. So Jubilee gives up her gifts, which half are food for some reason, some are toys. They've all like morphed into different shapes since we last saw them. And they spend their Christmas dinner with the Morlocks instead of inviting them all to the X Mansion.
Yeah, that's I hit my thing with my earphone, but yeah, I was like, and now they're gonna go back to the mansion. No.
It's implied that they're all rich, right? Like the X-Men have a lot of money, and the Morlocks seem very willing to take charity. Why are they being allowed to live in squalor?
Plus, there's a huge meal that's been prepared.
Yeah.
That is just like they're just going to scrape it into the garbage because he won't let them save it.
Also, are there only like 5 people at the mansion at any one time? Like,
yeah, like hopefully they like the students went home for break because their parents actually love them, unlike Jubilee.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was. I mean, we didn't even see the full roster of X-Men in this episode, I think. Yeah.
And then Storm solves the Morlock leadership problem by doing absolutely nothing.
Just
like
by giving it to some other lady
the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that did drive me nuts, and I'm going back a little bit, is when they first arrived in the sewer to like deal with the Morlock thing. Whoever that other Callisto was like you literally need their help, and you're like being petty and being like, well, and she's like, I'm literally just trying to save someone's life. She's like, well, you're a total bitch. It's like, do you want my help or not? Like, this is why I'm here.
How dare you not be our leader and then think you could come in here and help save someone?
Yeah, like, unreal. Seriously.
Well, they spend like what? A solid 5 minutes, if you want to count up all the minutes, of somebody saying to Storm, you should have been helping them more. Like these people are your responsibility. And then she finally is like, yeah, you know what? You're right. They are my responsibility. And how does she take responsibility? By giving it to somebody.
I'm going to finally take responsibility for this by giving you all of the responsibility.
The other thing during that
delegation.
Scene, she takes the staff back from Callisto, the staff of leadership, makes her bow. I thought she was like going to make everyone bow to her because like they'd saved Leech's life. I
thought it was an umbrella the whole time until the very end.
It does look like an umbrella.
Honestly, it might actually have also been an umbrella.
That's true, given the state of things.
They're trash people.
Yeah. And that was the episode. The tag. It was a Chaim Saban production, which I had forgotten about. See, Andrew, for those of you that don't know, the original run of Power Rangers was a Saban production, so that made so much more sense.
Yeah, wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah. Final thoughts for Have Yourself a Morlock Little Christmas. Who wants to start?
I'll start.
Oh, yeah, please.
Okay. Horrible. I felt worse having watched it, and I regret having done so. I could have gotten the so little happened in this episode. I could have looked up the Wikipedia plot line and have known more about what was going on. Because we don't even know why Leech is sick. He just has a nebulous illness that is either very serious or not that bad.
And apparently cured by blood. Is he anemic?
It was cold in the sewer. That's what the little girl said.
It's probably warmer in the sewer than it is above ground.
Homeless people have coats, and they don't have superpowers. The Morlocks should be better off, is all I'm saying.
Yes.
And now, is that your opinion of this episode or like the overall show itself?
I've barely seen any of the rest of the show.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you knew the show.
I know about the Morlocks. I know about like X-Men in general, but I mean the show. I don't know if it was this episode in particular, but like the voice acting was just not doing it for me.
It's so glad they're bringing these people back for X-Men 97.
It's a garbage shit trash program. Like the animation's bad, the dialogue is bad, the voice acting is bad, the plot lines are terrible.
The animation,
the people are terrible.
Also, Professor X is so much creepier in this show. I mean, he's a creepy dude in the comics a lot of times, but they really phone in on like, this is a creepy dude that just has like, he just brings in children and is like, here's this skin tight leotard. You're fighting crime now.
It's the Neverland Mansion. You know, you're like, oh, this is creepy. But I mean, even though it was too long, the theme song was the brightest spot of this episode. I would prefer never to watch another moment of this program.
So again, I really hope Kyle's okay.
Yes, I finally heard from him. Labor.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We called it.
We were, yeah.
Yeah, he's digging a trench right now.
Yeah.
Hard
hopefully he didn't bother to watch this before his wife went into labor.
No, he's in the delivery room watching this right now.
Well, she started texting me too, and I was like, "Hey, how about you focus on the baby?" Like,
it's not that bad. As someone who's been through it with my wife, you just kind of. There is a lot of, it sounds crazy. There's a lot of downtime when you're having a baby. It sounds ridiculous, but it is true.
So you're saying we could have had the first guest live from a delivery room.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like movies always make it out like the baby's coming in the car, but really you go to the hospital, you get situated. Then they're like, okay, we're going to have you walk around for 2 hours throughout the hospital, far away from your room. And then if you fall or go into labor, just find a way back. And I'm like, really?
Yeah, go and for the husband, go have a steak and smoke a cigar. Your job is done here. And you're like, but no, I actually want to support my wife.
They're like, no, shoo.
Yeah. So having watched this episode, it's not great. It's not making me want to go back and watch this series before the new episodes come out, or watch the new episodes, quite honestly. And I'm a fan of the X-Men because of this show, and I now looking back, little. I mean,
it's okay to have liked it as a kid. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's also okay to look at it and go, "Wow."
I will
as
say,
an adult.
Relatively for the Marvel animations at the time, it is second best of the 5 shows that I mentioned. Andrew will send you some screenshots of the Invincible Iron Man.
Second best.
Yes. Well, Spider-Man was
great.
Ringing endorsement.
They just ended.
I know. I did an actual rewatch during the pandemic, and I had forgotten that they cut it off at season 5 and then reboot with Spider-Man Unlimited, which was also terrible.
Spider-Man Unlimited, terrible, hilarious concept.
Watched every part of it. And and they'll be revisiting some of that concept in the new Guardians movie. But that's for another time. This is it for this holiday edition of Namely 90s. Tune in tomorrow and for day, I deleted an entire line from my outro. Tune in tomorrow for day 10 of the 12 Days of Christmas Specials, 3rd annual. Thank you again to Tej, and sorry we missed you, Kyle, but thank you to Tej from That Cartoon Podcast for coming on. Can you let our listeners know where to find you and your podcast or your podcast?
Well, if they're listening, they already know where to find your podcast, I hope.
Yes.
Thanks for having us on.
The
internet. That's all I was gonna say. Just the internet. We can be found all of our socials or That Cartoon Podcast. Just if you want to hear 2 idiots talk about things that you don't, that cartoons that you didn't think that you would ever be revisiting, watch it. Half the episode, I tell people to turn it off and go do something better.
But they don't, and they listen. You can find all that in the description below. And as always, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Namely90s with 90s, or find our personal Twitter accounts, if Twitter is still a thing at this point, at bshwitty and at NamelyAndrew, and tell us what you want us to talk about in future episodes. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Namely90s, also with the 90s. Finally, you can also contact us through our website, Namely90s.com. No, you can't. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Magic Blood, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeart, Good Pods, and wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Brandon. That's Andrew. Thank you one final time to Tej from That Cartoon Podcast, and we will catch you tomorrow for day 10 of our 12 Days of Christmas Specials.
Boom.
Woohoo!
Crushed it.